City of God, 2002 Brazilian film based on a novel by Paulo Lins, which in turn was based on real events. It was nominated for 4 Oscars that year, winning none of them. Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Editing, and Best Cinematography. The story shows us how life looked like in the 1960s and 1970s for poor kids growing up in the slums of Rio de Janeiro. It is centered on 2 poles, as it were, 2 magnetic poles in the characters of Rocket and Lil Z. Rocket, the narrator of the story, he's the straight one. He tries to stay out of crime and he wants to become a professional photographer. He wants to eventually lead the neighborhood. And Lil Z, from the extremely early childhood, has a penchant for violence and cruelty, and he wants nothing else than to become the crime ruler of the entire neighborhood, of the entire district. Throughout the years, we see them and multiple other characters grow up, interact, intersect, and sort of clash against each other in what becomes a harrowing record of Brazil's poverty-rooted gang violence. First thing that comes to mind when you're watching the film is the way it looks and feels. The interesting thing that the movie does is it almost makes Rio feel cold by washing it off almost all color. Most of the scenes, save for just a couple of very specific sequences, are desaturated and almost gray, in a way creating the atmosphere of hopelessness. But somehow the movie escapes being dull, thanks mostly to the frenetic combination of editing and music. Both aspects are incredibly dynamic, jumpy, and full of energy that feels like it shouldn't match the tone of the movie, of the events being shown, but it somehow does. And with the frenetic editing also comes the frenetic intertwining of the various storylines. Characters are introduced and sometimes left on the side for a good while before finally being brought back in and then expanded upon. It's a very weirdly lively mix, but crucially, as frenetic as it is, it never becomes chaotic. The narrative manages to stay focused and doesn't lose the audience at any point. It never confuses you as to what's going on or who is who or what point in the story we are in. The performances are fantastic, especially if you consider that most of the people involved in the film were not professional actors, but rather people and kids who actually grew up in the slums, who knew this sort of life firsthand. That in a way makes it kind of chilling and terrifying to have an increased awareness that not only the events of the film are mostly real, but also that some of those people did experience, well, maybe not specifically those moments, but similar things in their lives. It's a really harrowing depiction of the cycle of violence, how it keeps dragging people into itself against their will sometimes, how people will start out as innocent bystanders and then become the prominent and cruel soldiers killing each other in the streets. And worst of all, the film offers no solution to the situation. Individuals may escape, but the neighborhood stays the same. Dangerous, poor, and hopeless, with its inhabitants trying to find some semblance of joy in the music, and clothes, and drugs that are available to them. Very, very good film, in my opinion. It's atypical in the way it tells its story, but somehow manages to be clear and easy to follow all the same. And on a technical level, it is quite brilliant.